All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar. Today we're going to dive into the newly released version of Cognos Analytics 11.1.3 and share what we've seen as far as bug fixes, new features, changes, and so on go. There we go. My name's Greta Brower. I oversee the delivery of our services at PM Square, and today I'm serving as our webinar MC. Also with me today is Ryan Dolley, one of our senior solution architects, as well as our product manager. If you have questions throughout this webinar, submit them through the GoToWebinar pane on the right side of your window in the chat section. We will answer them all at the end of the webinar, and if there's any that we don't get to, we will email out the full list of questions and answers after the webinar concludes. We're also recording this session, and we will get it posted up on our YouTube channel not too long after the webinar is finished. A quick couple comments about who we are. PM Square is a gold level IBM partner. We're focused on the data science and artificial intelligence portfolio. That means products like Cognos Analytics and Planning Analytics also roll into this area as well. And what we do is assist our customers with all of their analytics initiatives, things like modernizations, upgrades, from both a technical and user adoption or change management perspective. We also specialize in training. We do a good number of things like assessment type activities, health checks, environment tuning, and so on. We have a great, outstanding team of consultants, people like IBM near celebrity Cognos Paul. We also have the author of the leading book on Cognos Analytics. We've got many IBM champions and just all around a really great team that can help with your challenges or goals. So of course, reach out to us if you need any help on that front. In addition to services, we also have products, one of which maybe you've heard of is Thrive, which does things like analyze error messages, report performance, and makes recommendations on how to improve your environment and increase user adoption, all in a really proactive way. We also help with IBM license management. And with that said, I'm going to bring in Ryan Dolley to share a couple slides highlighting the new release, and then he's going to jump into a demo. Ryan?
Great, thanks, Greta. So, as Greta said, today we're going to go over what's new in the 11.1.3 release. I'll try to hit kind of all of the high points to give you a good understanding of what all is included in this release. I think a lot of really good quality of life changes, plus some pretty game-changing changes to some of the Cognos 11 features that are great today, but also kind of give us an indication of the strong direction that IBM will be taking for features like the AI assistant, which is kind of the natural language query feature that's in Cognos. So we'll go over all of that today. At a high level, Greta, if you just want to advance the slide, what we're going to be covering is going to be changes to the AI assistant, updates to a few visualizations, and then changes to kind of some of the core components of this version of Cognos, right? So changes to the Explore capability that came was kind of the big new feature in 11.1.1. And then some nice changes to both reporting and to data modules. So, you know, I won't belabor the point or keep you guys in slides. I think we'll just jump right into the demo. So Greta, if you want to go ahead and give me the ability to share my screen. Okay. Just check to make sure that that's visible. Greta, can you see it?
Yep, it's visible. Thanks, Ryan.
Great. Okay. So right away, I think we're gonna start by focusing on changes to the AI assistant. This is probably the most I don't know, headline worthy or eye-catching change that you'll see in here. So just to show you guys, because one thing I find when I demo Cognos a lot of times is people, you know, I'll be demoing off of an Excel spreadsheet or a data module or something, and people will always say, but does this work with a framework manager model? Does it work with a package, right? So today I'll be predominantly demoing out of the Go sales query samples. So as those of us who've been doing Cognos for a while know, this is the framework manager package samples that come with the product. So one thing, as we jump into this, kind of to situate you guys, what we're looking at here is the dashboard screen when you come in, and I've clicked on this assistant button, right? I mean, you'll see down in the corner, it says ask a question. So what we've been able to do in Cognos since the 11.1 release is type something in here like that references column headers in our data source, right? So if I were to type something like revenue by country, you'll see. Now, one thing you'll notice is now it's doing type ahead. So you can see as I start typing, it's suggesting, well, do you want revenue by country code or revenue by country, right? That's something that's new to this version. In 11.1.2 or previous versions, it does not make any suggestions to you as you type. Here it does, and I can go ahead and if I arrow up twice, I can kind of page through the suggestions by using the arrow keys, choose revenue by country, hit return again to submit that query, and Cognos will go ahead and automatically build a query to return what it thinks satisfies the term that I typed in, right? So we've been able to do that for a while. I'm just directly referencing the column headers. It's cool, is it the most useful thing in the world? Maybe not, but we'll see how it's advanced in this version to where it's really starting to become a lot more powerful. So if I'm interested in, revenue by country, of course, it'll build that visualization for me, and I can just drag and drop it in to this space of my dashboard. One thing I will take time to point out here is actually there's a new, one of the changes for this version is there's a new map visualization. They've kind of just redone the graphics on it. I think it looks pretty nice. Of course, you can change how the map looks if you want to change it to a satellite view or whatever it is that you want to do. But out of the box, I think the one they have here is pretty visually appealing. Now, how has this advanced in this release? Well, the first thing that we would say it's now able to do is if I want to kind of apply summary via the natural language query, I can now do that. So for those of you who are familiar with this data, as you know, all the measures in it are sums, right? We don't have any averages or mins or maxes or anything like that. But if I were to type, for example, average revenue versus average planned revenue, and hit return, Cognos is going to go ahead, generate this visualization. Now I'll drag it into the screen. And as you can see, it's gone ahead and applied an average to both the revenue and the planned revenue measure, right? So that's not something I did in modeling. I didn't make a new calculation somewhere in FM or in the data module or even in the dashboard. I just typed in, average revenue by average planned revenue, and Cognos was able to translate that into an average rather than a sum. So that's a new feature that we have here. Another thing we can do now is top or bottom. So if I were to type, for example, let's do top 25% retailer site. So that's, the individual retailer sites within the data set by revenue. Now what Cognos is going to do is it's going to do the same type of thing where it's going to look at the retailer site and only show me the top 25% of retailer sites. Now what's cool about this, other than the fact that I just generated it by typing something and I didn't have to do, imagine if you had to do the top 25% calc in Report Studio back in Cognos 10, it would have taken roughly a bazillion times longer than that. But what's cool about this is, of course, since it's a top 25% rather than a top count, if I were to click around, for example, if I were to just click on the United States, the number of points on the chart is going to change because we're doing a top percentage rather than a top count, right? So just to show you kind of how these objects built via the natural language query remain interactive and can be, they act exactly like if you had gone ahead and done a custom calc and then built this visualization from scratch. The other thing that we can now do, and this is a great example of kind of showing you the direction that things are headed. is we can make direct references to categorical data in the case currently of geography or time. So what does that mean? What that means is that, you know, if we kind of want to take this a little further, I can say staff names, so the individual salespeople in this data set, by average gross profit in 2013. So that in 2013 is a reference that Cognos now understands. It knows that I'm asking it to filter my query by a specific year, right? And if I go ahead and add this to my visualization, we can see here that Cognos has applied a year condition filter. And if I open it up, we'll see it's applied the year of 2013. Now I can do the same thing for geography. So I could have typed in the United States or in California or something like that. Now that's in this release. In a future release, and I can't tell you if it'll be 11.1.4 or 11.1.5, but in a future release, Cognos will get full categorical awareness of your data. So instead of only being able to reference geography or time, you'll be able to reference whatever is in your data. I could, you know, you could have put in the name of one of your offices or put in the name of one of your salespersons or the name of one of your products, and Cognos would understand how to filter your data by that. So this is a first step towards that full categorical awareness, but we definitely expect to see that in the not too distant future. Now I'll go ahead and add another tab here just to show you kind of, well, can I do all of this stuff at once? The answer is yes, right? So let's say I want to bring all these different elements together, and I'm going to say, show me average gross profit by retailer site in the United States in 2013. Now here, I can see all of the retailer sites in the United States. You can see, expand this visualization a little bit so we can see it better. Okay, you can see it added an average to gross profit, so it applied the summary function that I told it to apply. And if I look at my filters, you can also see that it's applied both a country and a year filter to my visualization. So yeah, you can do these one at a time. You can do them in combination. And I think as we project forward to the next few Cognos releases, and we get the ability to make kind of direct references to individual data points in our data sets, hopefully you can see how this starts to become something really powerful, where I could type in, you know, show me the average gross profit for the retailer sites in California in the year 2013 for the following 5 sales reps, right? And it would be able to take all of that together and generate a visualization for you on the fly. So those are the changes to the AI assistant. I think if you look at kind of what's on IBM's website or the marketing material, that will be a lot of what you see IBM is promoting for this release. I think for good reason, because it's really starting to get very powerful and will only get more so going forward. But a couple other things to show in here. Within dashboards, there's now, and this is just a tiny little change, but I think it's so useful, the ability to put targets on certain chart types. So I'm going to add a column chart in here, and we'll make a really simple chart where, let's say, we take a look at, you know, revenue for the length of the bars, and maybe we'll just look at, I don't know, retailer country or region. Region should give us a pretty straightforward chart, right? So we're looking at the regions and revenue, and now I want to see the planned revenue as a target. Here you can see, and of course our sample data set is so wonderfully uniform, right? That everything is like exactly the same distance from the target. But as you can see, we've added in a target hovering above each of the bars, right? And so if I were to make changes here, like, okay, now I want to, you know, I want to go ahead and add retailer type, and I'll take, you know, retailer type and add it to color. You know, Cognos can change on the fly to continue to include those targets, just like it would any other element of the visualization. So again, a small change, but I think a really welcome one. That's something that I know a lot of my clients have asked for a long time now. So being able to offer it within the visualizations out of the box like that is pretty nice. The other thing that I would show in here, and this doesn't just apply to dashboards, it's also available in reports and really anything in Cognos. But this is another thing that I know people have been asking for forever, and to finally have it in Cognos is really nice. And that is the ability to share via email from the Cognos UI. So this is not running a report and telling it to do, scheduling a report and telling it to distribute the report via email. This is clicking up here on the share button. And for the last few releases, we've had the ability to share to Slack, which gives you the ability to send directly to a Slack channel, etc. Link and export have always been options, but now we have this email option. So you'll see when I click on email, it kind of takes a screenshot. That's what it's doing right now. It's taking a screenshot of my dashboard. And I can go ahead and put in recipients here. I can choose, for example, I wonder why it's taking so long to load. It's unusual. Like all snafus and demos, I swear this has never happened before. But you can see in here, I can go through, you have access to the directories, users, groups, and roles in your namespace. So you can add people that way. You can also search for them via email or, so search for individuals in your directory, or it keeps track of the last 30 people that you as an individual have emailed. So, the person I've ever emailed is myself. I can put in a new subject here. Put in a message. Annotate the screenshot. So I can, put in, for example, a map here or an arrow there and put in some text. I think that's Switzerland, right? Drop some text in there. Okay, and when I'm done, just delete that guy, right? When I'm done, I click send. And what Cognos will do is it will send an email to whoever I put in there. Again, it could be a person, it could be a DL, it could be anything. But it will include that annotated image that I made, as well as a link to come into Cognos that will take you directly to this dashboard. So that is, it's something that I know people have asked for in Cognos going back kind of as long as I can remember. An easier way to share things via email. Now it's in this release. So I think that's a really promising change and makes it very easy to share things with other people from directly within the Cognos UI without having to use the scheduling interface, which was always a little clunky. Useful for those of us, for people on the BI team, but for end users was always just like 100 too many steps when it came time to just email someone a report. And like I said, that works here in dashboards, but it works in reports as well. So those are the changes to dashboards and to the AI assistant. There have also been a lot of changes to the little changes, but I think useful changes to the Explore interface. So I'll go ahead and show that now. So when we jump into Explore, the first thing you're going to notice is that they have changed the colors of the visualization here. And that was actually to make it easier for people who have some degree of color blindness to differentiate between the colors on the screen. And this is something, just to editorialize for a second here, that I often talk to our clients about color choice when it comes to color blindness. Because up to 10% of the male population is colorblind. And so when you choose colors, I think these used to be like a green and a blue that were pretty close to one another, or red and green. There's a decent chance that someone who's looking at your dashboard or report will have a hard time differentiating the colors. And so IBM kind of stepped up here and knowing that changed this so that it's easier to differentiate the colors from one another for people who do have some degree of color blindness. So that's the first change here. Now, a couple little things they did that made this really, I think, more useful. The first one is, by default, they only show primary relationships. So you'll notice my target field is taking care of children. Of course, I can change it to something else up here. Maybe I want to look at weekly earnings, right? So I can start typing. It's got type ahead now. I can click weekly earnings, and it'll shift our focus to weekly earnings. But it's only the items that weekly earnings is directly related to, the primary relationships, right? Not the secondary relationships. I should be clear when I say relationship here, I'm not talking about a join. I'm talking about a statistical relationship that tells us what other items in the data statistically influence the variation of weekly earnings, right? So in this case, employment status has a very thick line. That makes sense. If I hover over it, I can see the strength of this relationship is 60%, right? So it's not, traditionally when you talk about Cognos and you say relationship, you're probably talking about a join, right? Here we're not, that's not what we mean. We mean a statistical relationship. Now, it's only the things that weekly earnings are directly related to. If I want to see secondary relationships, I can click this button and you'll see it rebuilds the visualization to show me not only the items that weekly earnings are related to, but then the secondary relationships branching off from weekly earnings. So that's a change here. The other change here is I now have the ability to filter for relationship strength, right? So if I say I only want to see relationships that are, above 26%, now it will filter on the fly to say, well, there's only two now. It's employment status and weekly hours worked, right? I can lower that down, of course, to see other items. Now, so this, just kind of I really do, if you haven't taken this feature for a spin yet, I really encourage you to look at it and just pop it open and start to explore your data without any preconceived notions, and kind of use this visualization to guide how you look at the relationships within Cognos. I can click on weekly earnings here, and it will automatically build a series of visualizations for me. So, a summary tile, this kind of, what do they call this? I'm blanking on the name of it. IBM has a name for it, but basically will show you like, hey, what factors drive weekly earnings, kind of like almost a predictive analysis. Weekly earnings by gender. So it's just by clicking on weekly earnings, it's automatically selecting visualizations that it thinks I might be interested in, right? Now, another big change here, and this is really good, I think, is it's had this comparison feature for a while. However, they did a really good job of hiding it to the point where a lot of people never found the compare feature. Now they front and centered it right here with the compare button. So how does the compare feature work? Well, I'm looking at weekly earnings by gender, and I might want to start to do some analysis on this. So I'll say, okay, well, that's interesting. How does this vary by age range? So I'll add age range in. It automatically colors by age range. Of course, it comes up with new natural language descriptors of what's happening in this visualization on the side, kind of on the fly as I change things, which is very cool. But what we really might want to do here is try to do a comparison of this visualization via some different types of slicers, right? So what I'll do is I'll click the compare button. You'll see it's now broken it into chart A and chart B. And maybe I want to do an analysis of, well, how does this vary over age between men and women based on whether or not they have children, right? So I can take the children flag, drag it into the local filter here, set 1 to does not have children, and then I'll click on this visualization, do the same thing, add it to local filters, set this one to has children, click OK. And now what you can see is as I move my mouse around one visualization, it plots a line and gives me the value on the other visualization. So it's pretty easy to do a comparison here and see, for example, that for women, in this case, it's age 40 through 49, that they on average, who have children, on average are earning $534 a week, which is lower than what women have on the same chart on the other side. So I could say, you know, that having children has an impact on the average weekly earnings over the lifetime for women, in that they earn less by having children. But interestingly enough, I can also see that the impact it has on men is that they earn substantially more over the course of their life when they have children, right? So that the idea behind this comparison is to put two visualizations next to one another, and then to be able to do kind of point-by-point comparisons of the values, where you can easily see how it varies from visualization to the one visualization to the other. And you can see below here, it gives you some information, the min, the max, and the average, the weighted average across the two visualizations. So again, these are things that I'm not explicitly asking for. There's no min or max or weighted average calculation in my data, right? Cognos is building that on the fly, and then allows me to do explorations of the various data points on here. You can see as I click around, the chart beneath my visualizations changes kind of in real time. So one of the big changes in this version, of course, the compare feature existed, but they made it a little more useful, and they made it very easy to find by clicking on that compare button. In the past, it was kind of, I mean, honestly, I can't even remember what it was you had to do to make it pop up, because it was so unobtrusive that you couldn't even find it. So those are the changes to the exploration. I think the other change now is within Explore, you can launch a story via these visualizations, instead of, in the past, you could kind of like send them to dashboards, but now you can directly launch a story with them. We won't get into that, but that's another feature that we have here. As far as what's changed in reporting, I know everybody always wants to know what's new in reporting, because if you're a longtime Cognos Pro, you've probably spent by far most of your time in that feature. So we can take a look at what's new there. A couple nice changes as far as reporting is concerned. For those of you maybe who haven't seen some of the changes that came in earlier releases, like as far as, you know, the navigation changes, of course, you'll be able to see some of that here. But as far as what's new in 11.1.3, let me just go ahead and grab our trusty Go Sales samples. So the first thing that I'll show you, I'm going to add a new list object here. And if we just drop in, maybe we'll just take retailer country and drop that in, and then revenue. Give you a simple example. I'll switch over to the page preview mode. And now one change here is they've redone the custom filter screen, right? So completely redone. Those of you who remember the custom filter screen in 11.1.2 looked pretty much identical to the custom filter screen in Cognos 10. Now they've redone it. You still have all of the kind of same features that you would expect here, but they've just made it a little friendlier to use, right? So I can select individual items, or I can put in conditional stuff where I say it contains, you know, the letter A. In the advanced settings, I can choose how I want it to handle things like nulls, empties, and how I want it to handle white space. Additionally, you still have control over things like, do I want you to prompt, right? What do I want you to call the prompt? Will I allow this filter to be changed in the interactive viewer for those of you who are running reports in interactive mode? And do I want to apply the filter to individual or aggregated values, right? So you still have control over all that stuff. It's just a friendlier way to interact with the custom filter. Now, I would expect this to be the way that we receive a lot of changes in report authoring. So, you know, we may be accustomed in the Cognos 10 world to all of these features. We'd get a bunch of changes at once, like a whole UI redesign at some point. What I would expect it to go this way going forward, where, you know, we've got this filter menu and we've changed the create custom filter kind of interface on its own, independent of other interfaces that might be within reporting. That's definitely the direction IBM's taking as far as development is concerned. Now, a couple other changes in here would be, this is a really big one. So you may be aware now that we have multiple visualization types. We have 11.1 visualizations, 11.0 visualizations, legacy visualizations, which is what they used to call Ray visualizations. And then we have the trusty old Cognos charts, right? Now, the 11.1 visualizations are cool. They look nice, and they have a couple of really nice features in that they're processed on the browser rather than on the server side, so they can do things like dynamically resize. You can give them a percentage size, and then depending on screen resolution and browser size, they'll resize on the fly rather than being like a fixed size, which is great. And the fact that they render browser side can really help improve performance in certain situations. And it allows you to bundle up data with the visualizations to provide like additional context to a visualization or to give additional filtering options for items that aren't displayed in the visualization, but you've kind of bundled the data along to write along with it. All of that's cool. What wasn't cool was that you didn't have the ability to drill through, right? You can configure a drill through for one of these visualizations. Well, now you can. So what does that look like? It looks exactly like you would expect drill through to look. So I'll just add the x-axis here as year, and we'll drop revenue in for the y-axis, and maybe we'll color by retailer type, right? So just to show you, okay, so here's our visualization. That's all well and good. It looks nice. This is that extra data I mentioned. Well, I want to send along something else. Like, well, I also want to be able to filter by branch code. I don't know. If I drop branch code in here, it will allow people to filter by branch code in the interactive viewer. It's all well and good. But now I have up here this drill through definitions button, and you'll see when I click on it, it allows me to configure drill through definitions exactly like I would on any of the previous visualization types. So that's a very nice change. It was a real head scratcher when 11.1.1 came out and you didn't have the ability to configure drill throughs in the 11.1.1 visualization type. Now you do, so that's a huge improvement. The other thing I would show is they've given us a new kind of report overview page. So here you can see it's giving me object count. It's telling me how many data items do I have, how many queries, how many local classes have I used, right? How many tables, how many lists, blocks, visualization, text items. It gives you all of that. It's nice to have it as a count there. Now it doesn't currently allow you to like filter by them or really kind of interact with this at all. I would imagine that that's coming in the future. I can't say for sure whether it is or not, but it seems like the type of thing that you would have. But what is nice, and I don't have a parameterized report, but if you do have params in a report, now all of those params will be visible here, and you can change and clear the params from this page. So that alone is a really nice little feature that they've put in. I know a lot of times that's been a pain where you've got a param, like you run a report, you're developing a report, you've run the report, the param is coded in here, and now you want to change it. It's always been kind of a pain to deal with, right? Now you can come here and just clear those things out. You got one place to see all your params and change the param values if you want to. And of course now the validate button is up here. And the ability to copy the report to the report spec is right here. So kind of a slight redesign to the report overview, but I think a nice little change there. The final bucket of changes that we're going to look at are some small changes in data modules. So I'll go ahead and just pop a data module open here. So the big change that we'll see to data modules has to do with validation. So now we have this validation button. It opens kind of a validation view where we can see all the validation issues that may exist in our data module. So it really, what it does is it kind of becomes almost like it makes it very easy to see what all the issues that you're experiencing in the data module are in one place, and to click through them so that you can set about fixing them, right? That's really the change to data modules. The only other change that we could show, let me grab weekly earnings, has to do with custom groups. So the ability to create data groups here, and then the ability to set kind of like fixed values rather than ranges, right? So in the past, you know, you would like just kind of choose ranges in here. Now you can set like a fixed ceiling above which things will go into like a top category and below which they'll go into like a bottom category. In the past, that, you know, it was kind of a lot of times things, you didn't have that much control, right? So things would get kind of, they'd go into buckets on the top or bottom range that you didn't expect. Now it handles that much better. That'd be the other change in data modules. So not a ton of change for data modules, although, you know, without giving away too much, I would expect there to be some pretty significant changes in the next release or two based on what we've seen internally based on our close relationship with the IBM dev team. So for those of you who have ever seen any of my webinars or who have met me or talked to me, you know that I love data modules and I encourage you to use them. I think there are a lot of really great changes coming to data modules in the next couple of releases that I'll be very excited to share with you. So as far as, you know, what's new in this version of Cognos, those are definitely the major releases. Any of you who may be, or the major features, of course, there are little ones that we always uncover that we don't see on the release list or the feature list for the release that we kind of find as we go. So you can check back on the PM Square blog, and we will continue to highlight those as we become aware of them. I think the other thing, and I'm not really able to show it right now, but for any of you who are Cognos Cloud customers, there is a new interface for configuring the on-premise secure gateway to allow you to connect to your on-prem databases from the Cognos Cloud product. That just makes it infinitely easier than what it was in the past. In the past, you had to work with the IBM DevOps team and do a lot of things, you know, with them to set things up. Now it's largely automated, where through the Cognos UI, you can get all the components you need to install to set up the secure gateway for on-prem data connectivity and really do the whole thing yourself. It's a huge improvement. Now, of course, I'm demoing from an on-prem version of Cognos that's running on Amazon Web Services EC2 instance, so I don't have that feature to show you. But if you look on IBM's website, there's some documentation showing you how that works. It's a huge improvement for anybody who is in that situation where they're using IBM's Cognos SaaS product and wants to connect to on-prem databases. So with that, that's what I want to show you today. It kind of covers the major changes in this release. Greta, if there are any questions, we can go ahead and take a look at them now.
Yep, we've got a bunch of questions. Thanks so much, Ryan. That was fantastic. I'm going to just take back my ability to share my screen quick. All right. Okay, yep, so we've had several questions come in. If you do have one and haven't entered it yet, please do in the chat window within the GoToWebinar pane. While we're pulling those together and giving everyone a chance just to enter another question or two, I want to mention a few things about upcoming events. And all the information I'm going to share can also be found on our website under pmsquare.com/events, or under the Connect that we have kind of squared off here in blue on the far right side, and then under the events drop down. So the first thing that we have going on is new virtual training options. So for August and September, we've got a few new virtual training options that have been posted, and they've all been big hits in the past. So upcoming in August, we've got a one-day session on data modules. September 12th, we've got a one-day session on intro to reporting within the newest 11.1.3. And then coming up September 19th, a one-day session on dashboards. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check it out. We also have information out there on our annual analytics conference that's held in the suburbs of Chicago. It's called PM Square Bacon Business Analytics Conference. And that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. It's at Arlington Park Racetrack. It's a 2-day event packed with sessions about analytics, data science, AI, and also we have customer success stories, hands-on workshops. And it's a really good opportunity to network with our customers and also with our team. So definitely check that out, again, under that events area, or you can go right to pmsquare.com/bacon. And that's coming up Wednesday, August 7th and Thursday, August 8th in the Chicago suburbs. Okay, so moving on to questions here. All right, the first question we have, were there any updates or enhancements to Framework Manager or Transformer in this release?
That's a good question. So no, no, there weren't. And I mean, the overall, and I actually confirmed this on a call I had with the IBM product team yesterday. The direction for Transformer and Framework Manager is that there really are not going to be updates to either of those products ever again. There's just kind of no other way to say it, right? It is what it is. So I love Framework Manager. I love Transformer. And Transformer and PowerPlay are probably my favorite Cognos products ever made. I really love them. But the direction going forward is that Transformer and Framework Manager are going to stay current. They're going to stay supported. They're going to continue to work in Cognos for the foreseeable future. There's no indication that they're going to be sunset or deprecated or go away. I would imagine they'll still work in Cognos 12 and maybe Cognos 13, and who knows, right? There's no end of life for either of those products. But all future development is going to be done on data modules. So if you are doing new work, right? You have new requests coming in, you're building new models. I strongly encourage you to consider building data modules instead of Framework Manager packages, if you at all can. And the reality is you can nowadays. The data modules have 99.5% of Framework Manager's features. And so you really can accomplish most of the same goals in data modules. I strongly encourage you to use data modules instead of Framework Manager for new development. If you're not comfortable with data modules, feel free to reach out to us. Of course, we have training. If you have one-off questions about, can I do this? How do I do that? Email me directly. I'm happy to field those. But there's, long story short, no updates to FM or TFM today. I don't expect any updates or new features in either of those products going forward. I strongly encourage you to consider using data modules for new work. The reason I say for new work, if you have Framework Manager models and packages and they're working today, there's no big rush to get off of them, right? However, I wouldn't it's not a hair on fire moment. We have 6 months to get rid of FM, nothing like that. But definitely consider how data modules fit into what you're doing and use them for new requests if you can. I'll get off my soapbox now.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Next question. The AI Assistant and Explore options that you showed, are those available in reporting too, or only dashboards?
That's a great question. Only dashboards. So if you go into reporting, you'll see the AI Assistant it's just not in there, right? I couldn't really say whether or not the direction is to incorporate it into reporting. I haven't heard that it is. I haven't heard that it isn't. I can take that as a question, and I'll email somebody in offering management to see if they can provide some clarity on that, and we'll include an answer to that question in the FAQ that we'll send out after today's webinar. That's a good question.
Okay. Okay, this next question pertains to the annotated screenshots feature that you showed. Can you combine multiple annotated screenshots into one compiled message? And then kind of as an add-on to that, do people who are the recipients of the screenshots need a Cognos license?
I knew we were going to get that question because it's a good question. Okay, so the first part of the question, can you combine multiple screenshots into one? No, I don't believe so. I think it's just kind of like whatever you're looking at the time when you hit that button, it grabs a screen of whatever a report, a story, an exploration, whatever it is that you're looking at. Cognos just kind of print screens it and then gives you the ability to annotate it. So I have not seen an ability to take more than one screenshot. That would be a nice thing to add. And if you're unaware, IBM does have a site that you can go to put in requests like that where other people can see them and vote on them. So that's a good one, and I would encourage you to do that. For the second part of the question, it's always a challenge to say for certain whether or not someone needs a license, because IBM is not 100% clear on it. I think the easiest answer is to just say yes. They probably do need either the information distribution license, which is the license that allows you to receive PDFs from Cognos, right? There are some additional licensing changes that are coming up at some point in the future that hopefully will make it easier to distribute things out of Cognos. And if and when that happens, of course, we will be sure to notify you of what those changes are. But I would say the answer to the question is yes. At the very least, that information distribution license, I would think, would be necessary to receive one of those.
Okay, thank you. Next question's related to the Explore feature and showing the relationship strength. The question is, what does the relationship strength greater than 26% mean in layman's terms? Yeah,
so well, it can be kind of hard to break this stuff down in layman's terms. But I mean, so the way I think, because I'm not a data scientist, I'll throw that out there. And IBM does have documentation on exactly what algorithms it's applying. If you go to the Cognos documentation, actually they have really great explanations for all of the AI and machine learning stuff that it's applying to that. And I'm with you in that I read that stuff and I'm kind of like, whoa. It's a little, I'm a Cognos guy and a data warehouse guy, right? That stuff can be a little over my head. So the way I understand it is that when it says, oh, there's a 60% relationship here, say between weekly earnings and, hours worked, right? What it's saying is that if you look at the variation in the values of weekly earnings, right? And you look at the corresponding variation in the values of weekly hours worked, that it appears that there's a 60% relationship between them. In other words, like the variation in weekly hours worked can explain 60% of the variation in weekly earnings, is how I understand it.
Okay. Right. Does this version still technically allow us to enable portal tabs?
Yes.
Okay, that was straightforward. Do you
the shortest answer I've ever given.
Do you still have the ability to type in custom filters within reporting, and where do you do that?
Yes. So you would nothing has changed in terms of your ability to go into the query management screen and add items to the filter section of the query management screen and type in whatever you want there, right? That change to the custom filter user interface really only covers when you interact with it via the what do they call that? The on-demand toolbar in reporting. And I'll actually just take a quick gander to see, can I actually access the create custom filter, advanced settings, condition. I'm just curious, can I actually access the, hey, just let me type it in myself menu from there? It looks like the answer is no. Yeah, so what you can do though, so that create custom filter gives you the user interface that I showed you. However, right below that is the option to edit filters. And on the edit filters screen, you can go ahead and manually enter filters. So you still have the ability to do that. It's not like they've taken away your ability to type in your own filters. They just have provided a better UI in situations where you want to build a filter by interacting with the report visually rather than using the kind of the query management screen.
Okay. Next question is kind of specific. I don't know if we're going to have an answer, but it says in 11.1.2, there's a bug in reporting. They're unable to drill through if a parameter contains an ampersand. Do we know if that's been corrected with 11.1.3 per chance?
Well, I don't know. There hasn't been a fixed list release for 11.1.3 yet. So what I can do is we'll take a note and I will just test that in our 11.1.3 environment, and we'll include an answer on the FAQ that comes out after the webinar.
Okay. Next question is there a way to generate SQL for reports based on a data module?
Yes, there is. How do you do it is the question, because I cannot recall. There's kind of a roundabout way you got to get to it, and I'm blanking on what it is you have to do right now. So we'll take a note for that and show you. Someone is messaging me on Slack. It's Control-Alt-M. So yeah, Control-Alt-M will give you access to that.
Okay.
It pays
here's an add-on. Here's an add-on question from the portal tabs. One previously, they say that their experience is that full interactivity reports work from the portal tabs, but they've heard only legacy reports work moving forward. Has there been a change on that front?
So they've heard that only legacy reports work, that full interactivity works today, but in the future only legacy will work. Yeah, at least that's how I understood that question. So I mean, I haven't heard anything in that regard. We can check into that and see if there are any changes coming, but I haven't heard anything specific from IBM to indicate that there are.
Okay, another, have you heard from IBM? Any idea on Metric Studio? Will that be coming back within Cognos Analytics?
No, for sure, no. So the intention with Metric Studio really, I think, is that functionality, in theory, migrated over to Planning Analytics. That was IBM's messaging around the end of life for Metric Studio. Now, how it is that it migrated over to Planning Analytics, I couldn't for sure say. I personally don't see a very strong mapping of the Metric Studio functionality into Planning Analytics. But long story short, no, there's really no planned replacement for Metric Studio. I do think without saying too much, I do think there are some changes coming that will give you better ways to visualize KPIs going forward. But as far as kind of the full Metric Studio suite of features, I don't think there's anything coming that's really going to substitute for that.
Okay. Couple more here, and then we'll probably have to wrap up. Can we start building a dashboard from a report output?
No, that's a good question. So not like there's not like a like open, build dashboard option when you click on a report. Now, what they are increasingly doing is making it so that you can copy paste or share objects between reports and dashboards. That's kind of slowly rolling out over time as they increase the conformance between the two. So we think about a year ago, like there was everything in reporting and dashboards were really separate objects. So you couldn't use you couldn't use an object from one in the other. And then over time, they're making it so that you can. So I think today, if I recall correctly, you can copy an object like a visualization from a dashboard and paste it in a report. I think it might be the other way around. So don't quote me on it, but for sure you can go from one to the other. And then our trainer Sonia just messaged me and said both. So both you can take visualizations in either direction today, and then the roadmap is to kind of create some conformance between other types of objects to allow you to copy between the two at some point in the future. I couldn't say when that will be delivered, but that is what we have been told. So I think one more, Greta, and then we can call it.
Yeah. All right, the last one, because we did get a couple of questions on this topic. Any change in the Jupyter Notebook integration process?
Oh, great question. So none that has been documented. We are actually today, like this morning, we were going through the process of integrating, upgrading and integrating our internal Jupyter server to 11.1.3. So if anything does change there, we can provide some guidance on what that was. But as far as documented changes, I'm not aware of any.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we are out of time. So we'll have to stop the Q&A right there. We've got several questions that unfortunately we didn't get to and are left unanswered. So we will answer those. We'll send out that Q&A FAQ doc to all the attendees. We'll also link to our YouTube channel where we'll have this recording posted if you want to go back and listen to anything you missed or share with a colleague. Thank you, Ryan, for the awesome demo, and thanks everyone for attending. Keep in touch. This concludes the webinar, and we'll see you at a future event. Thank you.